Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I am streaming to you live from beautiful Central Europe here in the capital of Hungary, Budapest. I hope everybody is having a fantastic week so far. Students, today in this class, we are looking at IELTS Task 1. This is a bar chart and it is a members chat class. You can only chat if you are a channel member. You can be a channel member by clicking the join button beside the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. If you're not a member and if you can't join, in some parts of the world it's not possible unless you use VPN, we do have an everyone chat class coming up in 90 minutes for task 2, so do not worry. All right, students, this class material is coming from our online premium IELTS web portals for academic. Check us out at aehelp.com. That's academicenglishhelp.com. And if you're learning for the general version of the exam, check us out at GIELTShelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. On both of these websites, you can use the code LIVE20, LIVE20, to get a 20% discount. Hi for Doves. Hi Kesey. There's a couple of our members joining in. Good to see you in class. If you ever have questions about our products or about the exam, feel free to send an email, Adrian, A-D-R-I-A-N, at aehelp.com. Hi Roshni. Hi Joshil. All right. You can get our books that we use in these classes in digital or paperback format from your Amazon bookstore, AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps General IELTS. Hi, I'm Arjit. Good to see more members joining in. We'll be ready to start this task 1 question for the academic IELTS in just a moment. So today, task 1, this class is about an hour with a short break. After that, task 2 for everybody. Tomorrow, some reading, and then finishing task 2. And then on Saturday, some Q&A for the members, and then a speaking part 3 for everyone. That's this week's schedule. Let's take a look at our IELTS Task 1 question for the day. Here we go. The following graphs show the popularity of 2 types of TV shows among men and women of different age groups. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. You should write at least 150 words. Hi Hung, good to see you joining in on class. So here we go, students. Hopefully this is fairly clear for you. We're borrowing this question from IELTSexam.net. Percentage of people who watch reality TV shows. And here you have males and females, and then here you have age groups. So you have 16 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, and over 45. Now notice these are all blue bar graphs, meaning that they are the age groups. And then here the red bar is female and the black bar is male. Now in the paper-based exam, you would probably see this as just one gray color, and then you would see this maybe as black and this one as white, or a pattern. You don't have colors on the official IELTS. Hi Alvina, Zainab, Danish, and Rahul. Good to see more members. Now this is a double bar graph. So chose this for you on purpose, members, to add a bit of complexity. So here we have percentage who watch game shows, okay? Is the graph clear, more or less, members? Can you see the numbers and the words on the graph clear enough to read it? Is it legible for you? I just want to make sure that you can see it. Danish says yes, it's fairly clear. Good, all right. Sometimes it's a bit tricky to get all the lighting and everything visible. All right, so again, we have game shows, men, women, age groups, and the previous we have reality shows, and we have age groups, men and women. Okay, so what is our first step, members? So what should we do? We've turned to the writing section of the exam. We're finished with the listening, the reading. We feel confident. We're remembering the correct steps to get those high band scores. What do we do? What's step number 1 for writing a band 7 or higher essay for this? Roshni says, well, we should paraphrase the question and give it some more details. So we begin our overview, right? It's the overview. It's the same as the introduction. Members, if you have questions while we're doing this, just ask, okay? I'll try to catch it. So you can ask me questions throughout the lesson in real time. It should be related to task 1, specifically this task 1 if possible. Okay, so overview, introduction. It has 2 parts. One is paraphrase the question with detail and report the most observable feature. Right. Those are the 2 parts of the overview. So let's do that now. Let's paraphrase this question. The following graphs show the popularity of 2 types of TV shows among men and women of different age groups. Report the main features. Make comparisons where relevant. So let's paraphrase this. You can actually paraphrase this question by answering a simple set of questions like, A, what are the graphs? Exactly. Okay, here the answer is, they are 2 bar graphs. Okay, next question, what are the data represented in the graphs? Answer, genders, game shows, and reality TV shows, and 4 age groups, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 age groups starting from the teenage years, right? So 4 age groups beginning from teenagers, right? So when you ask this question, members, what are the graphs exactly? What are the data in the graphs? What you will basically end up doing is paraphrasing the question with more detail. Does that make sense? I haven't shown it to you in that way yet, but basically it's these 2 questions. What are the graphs exactly? Or sometimes it's a line graph in a table, so be careful. And then what are the data represented in the graphs? That's basically your overview when you're thinking about graphs, because that is an overview for a graph. What is the graph? What's the data in the graph? Okay? And then, of course, the one last question is, what is the most prominent, means obvious, feature? Okay, it's just a nice vocabulary there for you. And what is the most prominent feature if we look at these 2 graphs? So if we look at reality TV shows and game shows, What is the most prominent, most obvious feature? That there's a variance in the preference of these two depending on age groups and gender. So we can see that these graphs do look different. These bars look different. These bars look different also. So the main feature that we can see is there's clearly a difference in the preference for these two TV shows. That's the answer for that question. One of them, you might have a different one. Okay, so here, what is the most prominent feature? It is clear that there are significant differences in preference among genders and age groups for each type of TV show, right? So that's my answer. Now, I have these three questions. I have my three answers. Basically, putting together the three answers gives me my Band 9 overview. Does that make sense, members? I haven't shown it to you in this way for bars and graphs, but it's just another very logical way to approach it without necessarily focusing in on the individual questions or, sorry, individual words or vocabulary of the actual task one. Does that make sense? Can you give me a little bit of feedback? You're quite quiet in the chat, unless my chat has frozen. So, Yuru, Danish, Rahul, yeah. Hung, yes it does. All right, good. I'm glad that's clear. So all I'm going to do, just to show you this, is basically rewrite my answers to what I just wrote there. So these two bar graphs represent a, what is that called when we're showing the connection among data? So when I'm showing the connection among genders, age groups, type of TV show, what kind of data am I connecting here? And what is the word or the vocabulary for that connection? Again, vocabulary for graphs and charts in the academic IELTS task 1 is very important. These two bar graphs represent a statistic. Statistic is okay, Hung. There's actually a better word. Yeah, Yuru, that's what we're talking about here. Correlation, possible correlation, or a relationship nonetheless, right? Good for you, Yuru, for thinking about that. Represent correlations and what kind of data is this? Okay, so when we say reality shows, men, women, and age groups, what kind of data are we dealing with here? Rahul, very good. So Rahul says we're dealing with nominal and interval data. So nominal data are like male, female, reality show, and game show. And then interval data is this here, the 16 to 24, 25 to 34. So that's kind of interval data. And this is an interval data. This is actually a rank order here, Rahul, would be more accurate. This is interval data here, the number of people, 0 to 10, 10 to 20. So on the y-axis, we do have some interval data, okay? We don't have to get too fancy for the IELTS. In university, they would probably say that the age groups are more ordinal data than interval data. So these two bar graphs represent correlation in nominal and interval data comparing gender, TV shows, and age groups. Okay. The most prominent feature is a clear difference in preferences for reality shows versus game shows. First one is reality shows. Second one is game shows. The graphs, so I can say these graphs respectively. Dependent on gender and age. So that's your Band 9 overview. Members, go ahead and write me an overview for this in your own words, okay? Forget about what I wrote. There's more than one way to skin a cat, certainly. And I'd like to see how you would come up with your overview here. And then we'll review mine after, okay? So the way I did that is basically with these questions, answers, and then putting together my answers into the overview. Okay, here is the original question. You can use that to paraphrase if you'd like. There are some other interesting ways to do this overview. If I were to write the IELTS, I might include one more sentence as well of some information to really push that high band score. So go ahead and compose your overview before we get to the data analysis. Which, of course, will be the next part. Hopefully, some of you are already working on this. Okay, and I'll bring back the bars again here. For all of our viewers out there, the overview should be anywhere from 30 to 50 words, possibly. 2 to 3 sentences, maybe even 4 sentences, depending on complexity. Ferdov says the bar graph depicts the most popular game show and reality TV shows for men and women, dividing them into 4 age groups from 16 to over 45 or 45 plus. Ferdovs, I wouldn't use the plus sign in this case. Just write the word plus, 45 plus, period. It's too mechanical to use the plus sign. But it's okay. That's just preference for Dobbs. It's okay. Importantly for Dobbs, plural on bar graphs. These bar graphs or these 2 bar graphs depict. Okay, you have to make it clear for your reader that it's 2 bar graphs. You should think, students, when you're writing task 1, that the reader doesn't necessarily see the graph. One way to check if you have a high band task 1 response is think, if my reader does not see this or these bar graphs, can they understand my essay? Can they understand what I'm looking at? If your answer is yes, you probably have a pretty good task 1 response. If your answer is like, no, I don't think they'd have any idea what's going on without looking at the graph, then you probably need to rethink your writing. Rahul says these 2 vertical bar graphs depict the information among, it's not in between, Rahul, it's among, because it's multiple, among nominal and interval data, such as gender, age groups, and 2 TV shows. At first glance, Rahul, very good. You're definitely on the right track. The one clear mistake is between instead of among. There's multiple nominal data. Age groups is 1, genders is 1, TV shows is 1, so you have multiple nominal data. Kisi says the 2 bar graphs represent the percentage of female and males who watch reality TV shows and game shows in 4 age groups. Very good, Kisi. That works. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, it's the percentage who watch these. Good. So here is mine, and I left that important piece out, right? So these two bar graphs represent correlations in nominal and interval data comparing gender, TV shows, and age groups. The most prominent feature is a clear difference in preference for reality shows versus games. These bar graphs, respectively, depend on gender and age. Okay? All right. So we have some different, but mostly quite accurate overview statements. So viewers, not just members, take note of the overviews that are written by Kisi, Yuru Hung. They're quite good, okay? Those overviews by the members are quite good. Hung says these two bar graphs depict the two different types of TV shows, reality and game shows, which also include gender, age group, and these two bars separately based on gender. Hung, you have a little bit of confusion there in the second half of your overview. I think you're putting too much information into one sentence, and it's making it confusing. Okay, stop after game shows, then start a new sentence and say the data is compared among gender, age group, in two bars separately. Okay. Yuru says these two bar graphs demonstrate relationships between age groups, gender, and their respective preferences for two types of TV shows, namely reality and game shows, based on percentages. Yeah, Yuru, that's very good. And then Yuru continues immediately. The taste in TV shows vary between men and women and across all age groups. Taste is a little bit awkward, Yuru, in this context. I know how you're using it, but that's a tricky one, Yuru, because we do use the word taste as preference, just not in all context. Taste in men and women, for example, is used commonly. It's a little bit old school, but we don't, yeah, maybe TV shows. It's a little bit less common. All right, anyhow. Next step is the body paragraph, which is the analysis, right? We have just one for task 1, and this is our analyses. What do we need to do before we start writing the body paragraph? So what do we do, members? While you give me that answer, I'll read the overview by Zainab and Alvina. Zainab says these two graphs illustrate percentages of men and women in 4 age groups who watch reality and game shows. Yes, absolutely. And then what's the most observable? Alvina says the bar graphs below illustrate the difference of watching TV shows and game shows between female and males in 4 age groups. Yeah, not illustrate us, Alvina. You don't need the word us. Alvina, try to stay away from the word us and we, any kind of possessive or personal pronoun in task 1 for the academic. Rahul says, before we write the body paragraph, so before we write the analysis, we need to find some key information and mark the main features. Definitely, okay? How many should we have? So how many points should we have if we want to write this, let's say, 200-word essay? 150 is the absolute minimum, so we should be aiming for about 180 words. Good, so Rahul says mark at least 5, okay? So I usually say between 5 and 8. You're right, Rahul. So mark between 5 and 8 important points of comparison from most to least, always, students, from most to least important. So don't just start marking any piece that comes to mind, but it has to be from most to least important, okay? So let's do that. I don't think you need to really see the numbers here because the bars are enough. So let me darken it up a little bit. I know with the side pane there, it's going to be a little bit. Let me do it like that. Okay, so here, black bar or dark blue bar, male, burgundy, red bar, female. And then here we have our age groups. So what are we comparing first? What should be our point number one for comparison? And for Doves, 5 to 8 points, I think most of you got it, is roughly about 8 to 10 sentences. So Rahul said 5, Hung says 4 to 6, Kisi says 5 to 7, Harminder says 4 to 5. Yeah, it's about 5 you're reaching for. Okay, so what should be our first point of comparison? What do you think? So Hung says 45 is the highest for both shows. I wouldn't start with that myself, Hung. Alvina says that there's a significant difference in the male group. And for Daz, Rahul, Kisi all believe that gender should be what we start with. Absolutely. So here we have about 35% for men for reality shows, and we have 60 something, 61 too. So definitely this would be my number one comparison. Okay, so the significant difference. What is the difference between men who watch game shows versus men who watch reality shows? What is this difference? What should come to mind? So again, this is about 62. This is about 35. What would be the right way to express that if you're looking for these higher band scores like 7, 5, 8 on the exam? Yeah, so Alvina says approximately half as many. So Alvina, you're approaching it from this one. You're saying approximately half as many men watch reality shows as game shows. And Rahul is approaching it from the opposite. Rahul's saying nearly twice as many. Double is okay. I would say twice. Nearly twice as many men watch game shows as reality shows. Sure. Okay, what's our next point of comparison? Yeah, so double or twice, I think it's a good way. Half, Alvina, yeah, if you go from the other direction, I think twice as many is a little bit more impactful. So it's a better way to say it. So here I would use twice. What would be my next point of comparison? So we have a comparison of men here. What would be my next point of comparison? I'm not sure why my camera shut down there. Just give me a second. I'll get you back on screen here. Yeah, so staying with gender, I would definitely go with females next. Okay, so here we have 70. That might be a little bit small, but we have 70. And here we have 60, right? So reality TV shows at 70, and here it's 60. So that would be my second point of comparison. Okay. Good. So yeah, if you're going with genders, definitely stay with genders. Don't jump to age. age groups. All right. So this would be, now how would I express that? If it's 70 here and 60 here, what would be a good way to express that in the writing? So what would be a good word to use for expressing that difference? So Hung says females have 70% for reality, 60% for game shows. Sure. Okay. So what word, what kind of vocabulary should come to mind to express this difference? Kesey says both shows have over 50% of female audience. I don't think that's quite accurate, Kesey, because this isn't from 100%. So it's not from the total viewership, right? Because here men are just over 60, and here women are just at 60 for the shows. Alvina, growth is not correct here because this isn't a line graph. So if you're using the word growth, that would be for a line graph. Rahul says slight change. Again, change is more for a line graph. I would just say slightly more. Okay, so here for men, it's twice as many for game shows as for reality TV shows. And here for women, it's slightly more for reality TV shows by 10% than for reality shows. Okay, what else is notable here? What would be my third point of comparison? So here we've compared men for the two shows. We've compared women between these two shows. What would be my next point of comparison logically? My number 3. Okay, so if I'm reporting this data as clearly as possible, what would be my next? Okay, Ferdov says the second group or age groups. Careful, I still don't see the right answer. Yeah, rise or increase, Alvina, is much more for line graphs than for bar charts. With bar charts, you have to be very careful, especially when you're comparing two bar charts discussing different. So within this bar graph, Alvina, we could say there's an increase in viewership, right? But you can't say between these two. That doesn't make sense. So within the graph, the bar graph, increase or growth makes some sense, although it's not perfect. But between the graphs, it definitely doesn't. All right, so some of you are saying age groups 25 to 34. Okay, we have to be really careful here, students, because we started with genders, right? So for our third point of comparison, it might make sense to compare between genders in the two graphs. So before I jump to discussing age groups, right, it might make more sense to explain that twice as many, okay, so again we have twice as many females watch reality TV shows as males, and here roughly the same amount of men and women watch game shows. So in my logic, it would make more sense to complete the information with genders before moving on to age groups. If I were watching a presentation on these bar graphs in a TV studio in a business meeting, it would make sense for me to focus on the elements of gender first and then focus on the age groups if we're comparing these two bar graphs. Would you agree with me on that, or do you think we should talk about age groups before we compare between genders in these graphs? Yeah, Kesey, I think from what you're saying there, you absolutely agree with me. So Kesey says females and males who watch game shows are nearly the same, but reality shows females are twice that of males. So Kesey, yes, you're agreeing. Alvina says, yeah, I think I agree with that as well. So that would be a key point, especially when you have this very big difference here, right, of the male and female. So now after that, we would go and compare the age groups. Okay, so what would we do for comparison? And again, here we're working on developing our logic. What would we do for comparison for the age groups? So what would be the next piece of information for us? So we have 1, 2, then this is kind of 3, the comparison here. What would be number 4? What would be my fourth point for comparison in these two bar graphs? What would make most sense? And again, you're going for the highest possible band score here. So Kesey says, let's talk about most and the least. Yeah, maybe we could do that. There's a couple other ways to approach this. Remember what I said, students and members, in the past. Don't look at data, okay? So don't look at most and least first, but what should you look at before you look at data? So before you're looking at any kind of specific data like most and least, or as Hung says, 16 to 24, what should you look at? Alvina says significant changes. Yuru says changes. Yeah, look at the shapes, okay? Look at the actual picture. So forget about all of this, but look at the pictures. So look at the actual graphs, right? Look at the graphic. Hence, and you're probably going to have a chuckle as well, like I just did, hence the word graph, because we don't call these data or data charts primarily, we call them graphs and charts. Why? Because we're looking at graphics. So think about that. The idea of a graph is that you're looking at a graphic which contains data, okay? Otherwise, we'd be looking at a data table, okay? So here we're looking at a graph and we're looking at the graphics. Yeah, I think some of you had, maybe Rahul, you took it away, but I think that was a good comment that you had there. So as age increases, more and more, or a greater percent of people watch reality shows. So Rahul, you're absolutely on the right track there. So as age increases with each group, a higher percentage of people watch reality TV shows. So that would be number 4. Absolutely. That's a very clear trend. Okay? And Yuru and Kesey are going, yeah, I see what you're saying now. A trend is more what we want to see. So here we have this increasing slope with these reality TV shows. Now here, we're still on the same point of comparison. We have a concave parabola, it's called in statistics, parabola. You don't need to use that word. It's, we're getting into university level statistics, but you need to pay attention to this shape, right? So the trend is different here. With game shows, there's a fair bit of interest for the younger age group. That becomes less with ages 25 all the way to 44, and again becomes the greatest at age 45. So that would be my point number 4. Okay? That would be my point number 4. And then my point number 5. So my point number 4 would be the trend. The trend of gradual increase. And here it's a decrease with increase. Okay, just to keep it simple. All right, so that would be my point number 4. And then if you're really pushing it and you still have, because I mean, we could divide this into point 4 and 5, so more points, same with this 3, so it could be 0.5 and 6. But if you really want to push it and say the most, then 0.5 could be age group over 45. So in both cases, age over 45 has the highest percentage of viewership. So 45 for both reality shows and game shows. Is it the only way to do it? So is the only way to do this with comparing males, then females between the shows, then comparing males to females within each show, then comparing the trends, then expressing the highest for both shows? Is that the only way to report the data in these bar charts? No, absolutely not. It's not the only way. As I said before, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Is it one of the best ways to report the data in these two bar charts? I think so. I think it's probably one of the best ways. I'm sure that it's one of the ways that will get you a very high band score if you can do this quickly and efficiently. Okay. Does that make sense, members? So that analysis, does it make sense? Does that make sense? All right, so then let's write our sentences. So let's write this sentence 1 with men, where basically we have twice as many men watching game shows as reality TV shows. So let's start putting these sentences together. Write with me, okay? I'm going to move nice and smoothly through this part of the essay, okay? So immediately, it is clear or evident that nearly twice as many men watch game shows as reality TV at about 62%. However, just 10% more women watch reality TV in comparison to game shows, which is at 60% viewership. The number, or the percent, sorry, we shouldn't say number, it's not true. The percent of women and men who watch game shows is roughly the same, while twice as many women view reality shows as men. Okay, so far, and I know all of my drawing is up there, so it's maybe a little bit tricky to see my writing, but I left it up there on purpose. So far, because I have a very good idea of my point 1, 2, and 3, I very quickly was able to write this part of my essay. So the comparison of genders between shows and between genders within the show, it goes very, very smoothly. Okay, I'll go through that as well, but I'm encouraging you members to write also, okay? So don't just watch me write, but write your own. Euro states, observing the graphs in more detail, game shows obtain twice as many male viewership as reality shows do. Euro, beautiful start, okay? Very similar idea as what I wrote with a very different phrasing. So nicely paraphrased Euro using your own words. Beautiful writing, okay? That's college, university level writing, Euro, absolutely, okay? And I see you threw in the percentage at about 62%. Euro, reporting the percent is fine, just like I did. However, if you write that well, Euro, so if you write observing the graphs in more detail, game shows obtain twice as many male viewership as reality TV shows do, you can still get a band 9. You don't need to have the 62% in there. Okay. Rahul says at a closer, not at the closer, Rahul, just at a closer. At a closer look, it is clear that nearly twice as many males watch game shows as reality TV shows at about 62%, whereas, one word, Rahul, whereas, females watch slightly more reality shows, about 10%, as compared to game shows. Okay, Rahul, very close, just a couple of small mistakes. If you can clean those up, you'll move from a band 7 to a band 8.5, okay, 9. All right, Roshni K says, upon deeper inspection, it is noteworthy that a large proportion of females watch reality series, almost 70%, while the females look at game shows are slightly less. Roshni, I would start with men, not women, simply because men are more significant, the difference. We're always interested in the greater differences. And the greater difference here is among men or between men of the two types of shows rather than women. Okay. Kesey says, obviously nearly twice as many male audience. Okay, let me try that a little bit differently, Kesey. So obviously, there are nearly twice the male audience for game shows as reality shows. In terms of females, the percentage is almost the same at about 60% watching both shows. Kesey, the reason why yours, you need to change it a little bit is because male audience is a noun expressing watching or viewing. So you don't need the verb watching or viewing. You just need, there's twice the audience for that show. With the word audience, we know that they're watching it. So we don't need male audience watch. It's not terrible English, but it's better without it, because audience and watch is kind of like you're saying the same idea, one with a noun, one with a verb. You don't need to do that. Okay, so you can clean it up a bit. I hope that makes sense, Kesey. Ferdovs, at first glance, it is evident that the percentage of men who watch reality TV shows and game shows are about 60% and 38% respectively. So Ferdovs, you're going much more with the numbers, which is okay. It's better to report the human language. All right. Now I'm going to hop over to point number 4 and 5 in my essay. So going to move along nicely. Suggest you do the same. Okay. Furthermore, the viewership of different age groups for reality shows increases with age. However, for game shows, it decreases after age 24, and then jumps for ages over 45. for both types of shows, the greatest percentage of audience is observable for ages 45 and over. All right, that's all that I need. So now I have completed number 4 and number 5. I can get into more details if I want to. So if I feel like I have lots of time left in the 20 minutes, I might get into the actual percent differences with these groups. I might get into the percent here with the number 5, so over 60% in both cases. So I can give more details depending on how much time I have. But as far as I'm concerned, I have a really high band score essay now. And rather than going into more details, I might opt to include a summary. Okay? And that's what I'm going to do because I think that there's a good summary here. Now, I know some students, this is new, and they're thinking, really, a summary? What would a summary be? Okay, and a summary is of information that we learn from this case, which is not included in the overview. All right. And I can see that some of you, Alvina, nope, Alvina's writing on the previous one. Rahul, I see that you've written a little bit more now on the male-female as well, which is good, okay. Members, keep going. So I know that there's a lot of information that we're digesting here very quickly, okay, and I'm typing away very fast. You can finish the analysis later. For right now, let's jump to the summary. Okay. So what can we summarize about game shows and TV shows based on percentage of gender and age group? What can we summarize? What is an interesting piece of information that we can learn from these two graphs on this data or in this data? So what can we learn? What do you think would be a good piece for the summary? Give you a second to think about that. When you're summarizing, students, one good strategy or one good step help you with the summary. So the original question is, the following graphs show the popularity of two types of TV shows among men and women of different age groups. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So what can we summarize thinking about that question and these graphs? Okay, I'm going to start it off. In summary, it is clear that both of these types of TV shows are what? Yeah, so Rahul says senior people. Not necessarily senior, Rahul, because I mean 46 is not a senior, but watch more reality and game shows. So it's more popular for them. That's right, Rahul. So in summary, it is clear that both of these types of TV shows are most popular for people who are over the age of 45. In addition, reality shows are more popular among women, as where game shows are clearly more popular among men. Okay, that would be the summary. All right, so that is now my full essay. Here we go. I'm going to read it. I have a feeling that some of our members are writing some more summaries, which is great. Maybe I missed a point. Let's look at the full essay now. So these two bar graphs represent correlations in nominal and interval data comparing gender, TV shows, and age groups. The most prominent feature is a clear difference in preference for reality shows versus game shows in these bar graphs, respectively, dependent on gender and age. Immediately, it is evident that nearly twice as many men watch game shows as reality TV at about 62%. However, just 10% more women watch reality TV in comparison to game shows, which is at 60% viewership. The percent of women and men who watch game shows is roughly the same, while twice as many women view reality shows as men. Furthermore, the viewership of different age groups for reality shows increases with age. However, for game shows, it decreases after age 24 and then jumps for ages over 45. For both types of shows, the greatest percentage of audience is observable for ages 45 and over. In summary, it is clear that both of these types of TV shows are most popular for people who are over the age of 45. In addition, reality shows are more popular among women, as where game shows are clearly more popular among men. And that would be your Band 9 essay. Okay. All right. Members, if you'd like to try that essay on your own, looking at the bar charts using your own words, and then send it to me for a score estimate and a little bit of feedback, I'd be happy to do that. Just send it to my email at adrian@aehelp.com. That's ADRIAN at aehelp.com. For all of our viewers, it's really important to practice these multi-graph essays for task 1. Okay, so here you have these two bar graphs. Make sure to practice this for task 1. You do see a lot of these multi-graph IELTS exam. The right strategies to structure these essays, vocabulary, and so on, definitely check us out on our academic IELTS website, aehelp.com. We have lots of videos, fully interactive course, 6 full practice exams, a fully integrated app coming up, Live 20, LIVE 20 for a 20% discount there. You're very welcome, Rahul. See you soon for Dobbs. In 30 minutes, we are looking at task 2. Everybody can chat, so everybody can join in 30 minutes in our task 2 session. Alvina, you're super welcome. I'm glad it was helpful. Hung as well. Much love to all of you. Bye for now. See you shortly for task 2.